This is the continual evolution of the East Coast beat. I sit in the dark valley, 51, with a lamp, a pen, some paper, and time. I question, have I ever walked out on love? Not in my mind, but my body says maybe so. I ask, do you still dance with me as the shadows and the whispers swirl? Because it's the witching hour, and I want someone to share oblivion with, to watch as all things burn in the desert sun. It's quiet in the valley. Most are inside, some still roaming. And even though it seems as though they never end, the streets, the asphalt streets, know. There are times when I asked for more. Now I lean in my door and tan in the new sun. As I walk down the concrete trails of the city, I look left, I look right, I look to the mountains. I'm looking for redemption or salvation, but all I've got is a $20 bill, and I'm half blind. But yet, I can still hear promises yet unspoken. At 51, what is life? You know, at a certain point when I was younger, there were things I wanted to meet. There were certain things that I thought I needed, or not needed, but things that I thought would be really cool if I got to experience in life. You know what I'm saying? And I've got to do a lot of things. One thing I thought when I was in high school that would be really cool is if I ever got to swim with sea turtles. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I dig the story. When I was in the third grade, I read this. They had this collection of books, and it talked about sea turtles, and I thought that's a pretty cool. Like, sounds like a cool life. Like swimming across the deepest parts of the ocean. You know, like that, and then coming back to the same beach. You know what I'm saying? Like ideas like that just sound pretty cool. Like when I was younger, I was reading those same encyclopedias. And like I said, one of the first words I remember reading was amor, which is love, and then armor, which is war. And then, I'd read about animals and, some even dinosaurs, some would be predator and some would be prey, and who wants to be prey. But a mouthful of, you know, raw meat and blood and fur, I don't want that either. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, even in my life, when it comes to that, I eat meat because it's already there. Would I kill an animal to eat it? I doubt. You know what I'm saying? As a veteran, I mean, honestly, it's like if it came down to the end of the world and I'd have to start killing animals and all that other stuff, you know what? I've seen, you know, what the promises of living after civilization look like, and I'm not down for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if civilization falls, I fall with it. I mean, even though I've always been an outsider, it's still been my thing. You know what I'm saying? Even though I don't have kids, that doesn't mean I hate kids. Even though I don't have a wife, that doesn't mean I hate wives. Even though I don't have a husband, that doesn't mean I hate men. You know what I'm saying? It's just in my life. Like I said, I've heard whispers, and those whispers have told me to stop, to pull back, to pull inside, to wait. And I would wait until the whole event was over. And then, and then what? And then it was just memories of me standing on the outside listening to conversations and people laugh and glasses clink, you know, while I just watched the night roll by, the day roll by, the decade roll by. I mean, part of Buddhism, like I said, I grew up under the misconception that detachment was pure detachment, not seeing life as it was and living it. Detachment was okay. Don't get it. Like, just don't get involved. How can one escape the revolution of life and death? Don't get involved. Be beyond this life. You know what I'm saying? And so I lived like that for a while. Uh, Went halfway around the world like that. Worked jobs like that. Had friendships like that, where we could be as close as it was, to the point where I sit next to you for hours, you know what I'm saying? Drink from the same drink if you wanted to, eat from the same pizza, smoke from the same pipe, you know what I'm saying? Smoke from the same spliffs, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you were my friend, I had no problem doing that. But then at the same time, if one day you just never showed up, I would get used to that, right? So then at a certain point in my life, if I just stop showing up or if you just stop showing up, then we would continue on with life. Detachment. It's like you always wanted to live in a city. Like, I remember when I was volunteering once in the kitchen at the clubhouse where I volunteer at. We had doctors and nurses from one of the not local universities. They're actually from a little bit away, but they had a externship where they would come in and spend a couple hours with us, and we would get some of them to come into the kitchen with us, and cut vegetables and boil pasta noodles. And I remember I had this one girl. We had made strawberry shortcakes, but we didn't have enough strawberry shortcakes to serve everybody that was there. So I had to tell her, for every shortcake, cut it into 4 servings, take 3 of those servings, and make 1 cake out of that. That way we're saving a quarter, and that'll get us through the rest of the, head count. You know what I'm saying? And then I told her, hey, you're free to do whatever you want with the whipped cream and I think we had strawberries and whipped cream. I said, feel free to do whatever you want with that, but that's all I need you to do to meet my standards. You know what I'm saying? And so, she, and then I remember after like 30 minutes, I walked back up to her and I was going to tell her, feel free to make one for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And she had already made she had already made herself one and it was all loaded up. So she was pretty cool. She thanked me for, I mean, they were there to observe mentally disabled patients. And, here I am letting her have that much fun, plus she got strawberry shortcake out of it. So it's not like I've always been detached, to the point where I've never been able to connect to another person. But the ever, forever, I believe in forever in a way. I believe that maybe life may be forever until it ends, But has it been forever? How old? How old? The water that I drink every day is 400 million years old. You know what I'm saying? Um, so how old is everything? How old is the light I see? How old is the idea I have? How old is the emotions I felt? How old is all that in the end? And then you start thinking like that, and then then you understand better what detachment is. You know what I'm saying? And you have a better understanding of non-attachment. I mean, love yourself, love your body, but understand that in time it may begin to fail you, and it changes the way you think. Like I said, I walk with a limp and I can't use my hand now. I'm an ex-trained MMA fighter. I never fought an actual. I didn't even fight smokers, if anybody knows what that means. But I trained for a couple months. I trained for a little bit, but I spent half the time injured. I've had shoulder dislocated. They re-broke my nose. Once me and a guy went up and we clashed. We went knee to knee, and I have Osgood Slaughters, so that knocked me out. Like I couldn't even walk for 3 days. You know what I'm saying? And I don't remember how long that took me to get back into training, but I remember after a while, I just walked in and I told the coach, like, I can't keep training here no more. I know you guys are all professional fighters, and half of them were. Some of them were from the sheriff's department, cadets. They would train there. We had a couple guys from one of the local detention centers train there, like the prison, the jail. They trained there. We had a couple of plainclothes police officers, not plainclothes, but detectives, um, trained there. We had highway patrol trained there. We had skinheads trained there. We had guys that ended up, getting into the dark side of life, because that's where Muay Thai will take you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're a trained martial artist, but it's a dirty kind of martial art. It's like I trained Taekwondo first, and that's very clean. And I remember at one point, I've even led classes of other people, and from 4-year-old girls to 86-year-old guys, I'm teaching them I can't even remember how to count off, but they would do their little kata for me, And I've done all that as Taekwondo, and then you go straight from that to, well, I didn't go straight from that. I went Taekwondo, then I went full contact kickboxing, and from full contact kickboxing, I went MMA, because I figured, well, I might as well be able to do ground game, jujitsu. So we taught, uh, it was called Combat Applied Sports, and it was boxing. We had a boxing coach, we had a jiu-jitsu guy, we had a Muay Thai guy, we had an MMA guy that actually fought for professional, like back in the 90s. I think it was called King of the Cage or something like that. But I mean, these were, considering that it wasn't $1 million sport at the time, he was at the top. He was fighting in front of 50,000 people, you could make enough money to live. And then as a coach, you were paying your bills. And then, like I said, everybody was waiting for the big chance to go. Like the UFC had just started when I started training MMA. And that's one reason why I got into it. Was because I didn't want to get guillotined and not know what the fuck was happening, or I didn't want somebody to do this and me have no idea what was happening. But now that I'm older and half crippled, I can't say half crippled because I can still walk, I can still use my hand. I'm thankful for that, yes. But it changed, and I've never been a 100% positive individual. I have been known to do and say some pretty, or more say and yell some pretty negative things. I luckily I don't really do too many bad things. You know what I'm saying? I stopped certain things long time ago. And I think that's why I smoke so much, you know what I'm saying? Because I'd rather be, punching something till it breaks half the time, or kicking something like I have. I've almost broke my own toe kicking a broke coffee maker because, I was just, hey, if it's so I was pissed, it was already broke, might as well finish the job. Plus, I was wearing boots, but they weren't the right kind of boots. And that was, before, well, that was in the last 10 years, but, um, you know, imagine before. So, like I said, I'm looking for redemption or salvation. And where I live, we're surrounded by the mountains and the foothills. You can see foothills all around us. So, I walk down the concrete. I walk down the concrete sidewalks. I walk down the asphalt streets, but I look to the mountains. I look to things older than me to show me the way, things that have better understanding of how to be. Why do I want to be um, anything less majestic than the side of a mountain when it comes to showing my thanks to the Lord for giving me the opportunity to live this life? You know what I'm saying? Um, my my dog just passed like a month ago, and she did it pretty well. I mean, fantastic. No complaining, no this, no that. I knew she was in pain occasionally, but she would just, no this, no that. She showed me that as much as I bitch and moan and gripe and all this other stuff, that I should live more in silence, you know. So, that's what I've come to learn as an older man. I've trained MMA, you know what I'm saying? Can I use that now? Not really, not like I could before. But the whole thing is I haven't lived a life in which I'm going to have to fight guys in my 70s. I haven't been that way, you know what I'm saying? Martial arts is about your mind and how you act with people too. Just because you can knock somebody out or choke somebody out or pick somebody up and slam them into a park bench doesn't necessarily mean that that's the action you should take at that time. You know what I'm saying? So the continual evolution of the East Coast beat, like Lil Wayne said, take heed, you know.